on Jerusalem Dateline. This week on Jerusalem Dateline, after nearly 4 years, Pastor Saeed Abedini has been released from an Iranian prison. What does this mean for his family and for relations with the Islamic Republic? Plus, an Israeli expert tells what's really behind the current wave of Palestinian violence. And hear the first-hand account of what happened during the terror attack at the U.S. compound in Benghazi. Hello and welcome to this edition of Jerusalem Dateline. I'm Chris Mitchell. After more than a decade, economic sanctions against Iran have been lifted. But Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says the issue is still the same. Iran must not be allowed to get nuclear weapons. CBN correspondent Julie Stahl has that story.
Israel says even though the nuclear deal with Tehran has been implemented, Iran must not be trusted.
The whole international community will have to be extremely watchful and extremely vigilant because we cannot trust Iran to fully implement the agreement. And even if they do implement the agreement, one has to remember that it is limited in time. It is limited to 10 or 15 years.
Netanyahu fought a losing battle against the Iranian nuclear agreement for years. Saudi Arabia and the Gulf states also opposed the deal. They said it would legitimize Iran as a nuclear threshold state. It allowed the lifting of sanctions against Iran and puts billions of dollars of resources in their hands. Foreign Ministry spokesman Emmanuel Nachshon told CBN News that Iran's ambitions go far beyond its nuclear pursuit.
One cannot ignore the fact that Iran is not only engaged in nuclear activities, it is also engaged in subversive activities all over the Middle East. You can see the Iranian fingerprint in any and every activity of Hezbollah in Syria, in Yemen, in other places in the region. There is a huge enterprise of destabilization which is orchestrated by Tehran.
President Obama hailed the implementation day of the deal as a victory. It also included the release of 5 Americans from Iranian prison and the speedy release of U.S. sailors captured in Iranian waters last week. Nachshon says Israel has had experience with its citizens being captured by terrorists.
On a humanitarian and personal level, of course, we are all very happy. People taken hostages by terrorists should be released. But does it make the terrorists less terrorists? The answer is no.
In the meantime, Nachshon says Israel will have to live with the deal, even though the potential for danger is huge. Julie Stahl, CBN News, Jerusalem.
We're getting a look at the first picture of Pastor Saeed Abedini after his release from an Iranian prison. In this photo, he's standing alongside North Carolina Congressman Robert Pittenger. He met with Pastor Saeed in Germany as part of an official U.S. delegation to welcome him home. Our George Thomas spoke to Pittenger about the meeting in an exclusive phone interview.
First off, how is he doing?
He's doing very, very well. His spirits are great. He looked in good physical health. I think the Iranians had probably predetermined that they would be releasing him, so they took good care of him, I think, the last 6 months.
Can you talk a little bit about any physical challenges that he has? We've been reporting for several years about some of the experiences he went through in prison, specifically reports of torture and so forth. Is there any repercussions from those years?
I think he's come out of it very well, mentally, physically, emotionally. He is engaged. We didn't get into a lot of the torture aspects. We just talked about his future and his life, and he's been through a lot, and it's been a long journey that he's been through, and he's a different person today, and he's got a long journey ahead of him.
As America celebrates the release of its citizens from an Iranian prison, concerns are growing over the prisoner swap. Critics say the deal is another example of American weakness, and many in the U.S. and Israel believe Iran cannot be trusted. Gary Lane has more.
During an interview with a TV station in Boise, Idaho, Naghmeh Abedini called her husband Saeed's release surreal and unbelievable. She said it will take time to adapt once her husband Saeed returns home.
It will take time to readjust, to know each other. I'm a different person. He's a different person. I don't know where he's at physically, mentally, and our family would need time to readjust, and that's going to be the next step, and asking for prayer.
But some Republican presidential candidates criticized the deal that set the Americans free from prison, saying it set a bad precedent.
It proves, once again, that now nations and enemies of America around the world know that there's a price for Americans. If you take an American hostage, Barack Obama will cut a deal with you.
And Donald Trump said, quote, "We give them $150 billion. We give them essentially 22 people, 22 people. But these are people that really did have problems. And we're getting back 4 people who didn't do anything wrong. That's the way we negotiate. That's the way we negotiate. It's so sad. It's so sad." President Obama said the prisoner deal and the nuclear agreement with Iran serve as a reminder of what America can achieve when it leads with strength and wisdom. But the president's positive spin on the deals is unlikely to change attitudes toward Iran in the near future. Many Americans still distrust Iran and think the nuclear agreement was a bad deal. But for now, the captive Americans are heading home. Gary Lane, CBN News.
365 days a year.
Several Americans are missing in Baghdad. Local media reported that militias kidnapped 3 Americans, and the U.S. Embassy confirms they're missing, and it's working with Iraqi authorities to find them. The news comes as the security situation in Baghdad seems to be slipping. More than 50 people died in attacks in the capital and nearby areas recently. Baghdad had been mostly calm for months. Well, Palestinian Authority Chairman Mahmoud Abbas summoned the Israeli press to Ramallah. He denied charges by Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu that he refuses to meet with the Israeli leader. He said he was even snubbed by the Prime Minister's office recently, a charge Netanyahu's office denied. Speaking in a public interview with CNN's Fareed Zakaria at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Netanyahu said talks were up to Abbas.
We haven't been walking away from negotiations. Unfortunately, the Palestinian leadership for the past 7 years has deigned to meet with me for 6 hours in the first year. And since...
But they say you create facts on the ground by building these settlements that make it highly unlikely that there will ever be a Palestinian state.
Well, they say that, but in fact that's not the case, because the settlements take up a very small amount of land, and in any case it's something to be negotiated. Let's negotiate.
Netanyahu said for years the idea was that if the Israeli-Palestinian conflict was resolved, then Israel would have peace with neighboring Arab states. Now, he said, it's the opposite. Warming relations in the Arab world could actually help solve the Israeli-Palestinian dispute. Well, Israeli police arrested the Palestinian attacker who killed a Jewish woman in the community of Otniel in front of 3 of his 6 children. The attacker was just 15 years old. It's just one of the latest attacks Israelis have suffered since last September. That wave of Palestinian terror attacks has killed 29 Israelis and wounded nearly 300. Most of those terror attacks have been stabbings or shootings. Magen David Adom, often the first responders to the scene of a terror attack, have begun to train ordinary people how to treat a terror victim on the scene even before medical personnel arrive.
We decided to do this a little bit way from the regular training that we do due to the current escalation that happened in Israel and this type of violence that we are experiencing. And there's a high interest within the Israeli public to know what to do and to know how to assist others.
Yagodovsky says having someone on the scene as soon as possible to treat a victim is the key to saving lives. Up next, an Israeli expert tells what's really behind this latest wave of Palestinian violence. What's behind the current wave of terror? Julie Stahl talked with Anat Berko, an Israeli criminologist, IDF Reserve Lieutenant Colonel, author, and Knesset member. For years, Berko has met face-to-face with many Palestinian terrorists, both men and women, to discover what's behind this vicious behavior. And what she discovered may surprise you.
Dr. Anat Barko, welcome to Jerusalem Dateline.
Happy to be here.
Tell us about your books that you've written.
My books, The Path to Paradise and The Smarter Bomb, actually dealing with the mindset of terrorists. Part of them send others to blow themselves up or send others to carry out terror attacks, and suicide bombers that failed. And also my last book, The Smarter Bomb, speaking about women and children in terrorism.
So what's behind this current wave of terrorism that we're seeing in Israel right now?
You have this incitement and social media against Israel, and they say, okay, do whatever you can, carry a gun, carry a stone, do something, Molotov cocktail or something like that. And also the collapse of the patriarchal family, that they cannot control anymore on the children. In this age, when they are minors, their sexual identity is uncertain, and they want to show themselves as a man. About women, we see more and more women involved in terrorism. And I found in many cases that it was something that women tried to escape from, imposed marriage or incest or problems inside her family. Actually, I dedicated 5 years for women in the Israeli jail, security prisoners, and they told me we have much more freedom in the Israeli prison than in our houses.
When you speak about their motivation for carrying out these attacks, it sounds much more like it's things that are coming from their own families, not necessarily things that are imposed by Israel, like they don't have enough food or they don't have... so in other words, it's more like a society issue that's driving them forward.
The issue of struggle, nationality, revenge, it's there for everybody. And also part of a trend for children, I call this in my book, to be a shaheed or not to be, because they don't have any other choices. When you stop a boy playing in the streets with his face concealed, he wouldn't say, I would like to be a doctor or a lawyer or a teacher. He would say, I would like to be a shaheed.
Now, the people that are carrying out the attacks here, what kind of a reward are they hoping to achieve?
It's to go to a place that is much better, Jannah. Jannah, which means paradise. It's like for the males, they'll have the 72 virgins, eternal virginity with no physical need, no bathroom, no period, nothing, no headache, whatever. For the girls, she cannot say, I want to have sex. So they are speaking about to be one of the virgins, and if she was married, she'll meet her husband. If he was an abusive husband, he will go to Jahannam, to hell, and she'll go to paradise.
Now, how can Israel stop this current wave of violence?
You know, the security fence stopped many suicide bombers, and they told me in jail, you cannot just walk and blow yourself up. The other thing that we have immune society. Each one of us served in the army, know how to use weapon, aware to the environment.
Right.
And this is something that we need to stop and to know that in Paris, that in New York, and in Tel Aviv, and in Jerusalem, it's not about Israel, it's about all of us.
Coming up, an in-depth interview with one of the heroes who lived through the terror attack in Benghazi. When terrorists attacked the American diplomatic compound in Benghazi in 2012, members of a security team for the CIA stepped up to defend many Americans. The former members of the military shared their courageous story in a book called 13 Hours. It's now a major motion picture. I just finished the book, and if the movie is anything like the book, I'm sure it's a powerful story on the big screen. Ephraim Graham sat down with one of the real-life heroes from Benghazi.
Libyan visa. Official.
Pull over for inspection.
Sorry, sir, I can't do that.
Pull over for inspection. for your country. I'm ready to go right here, right now.
13 Hours is an inside account of what unfolded within 13 unforgettable hours in Benghazi, Libya on September 11, 2012. The best-selling book and now movie is told from the perspective of 6 former elite military operators, all hired to secure a CIA annex just a mile away from the United States diplomatic compound.
Everybody, this is Jack Silva. Jack. We train SEALs at Coronado, so he knows the drill. Welcome to Club Med.
Actor John Krasinski plays Jack Silva, a former Navy SEAL who has actually remained anonymous.
The politicizing of the issue has actually overshadowed the real human story, the story, which is these 6 guys laid their lives on the line to save all these people that night. And I think that that is the true definition of heroism. And you realize that all the politics came after that moment. And so we were very lucky to have the opportunity to sort of not have to deal with any of the politics, because that night those politics didn't exist. It was just about what these guys did.
None of you have to go. But we are the only help they have.
The men defied orders to stand down and rushed to defend those being attacked by Islamic militants at the American diplomatic compound.
We're talking about 6 men. You play one of them. How would you describe that man?
Wow, do we have an hour? I think it's funny. I actually got to meet the real Jack Silva, which was the most vital part of the process for me. And the thing that I really took from it, not only did I admire him as a military man, but I saw who he was a very unassuming, incredibly generous, kind man who was a family man, a great husband, great father. And that, to me, added a whole new level of emotion for me going into the role because of what he leaves behind every time he puts himself in a situation like this.
Hey, we're coming in. We're on property.
On the roof, don't leave. Former Marine turned contractor Mark Oz Geist lived through those unforgettable 13 hours that now play out on the big screen.
Is there time for prayer and faith in a situation like this?
I mean, for me, it's my faith and my relationship with God's always there. That foundation is something that I was lucky to have that instilled in me from my parents from birth.
I'm telling you right now, there's no atheist in a foxhole. There is none. When those bullets are flying, that faith in God comes out.
Chris Tanto Peranto is a former Army Ranger.
We need immediate assistance. We are overrun.
State's under attack. Let's go, man. State's under attack. Let's go. We gotta move.
If you do not get here soon, we are all gonna die.
We hear the calls, people calling for help. That broke my heart as an American. Did you feel abandoned?
After I got back, I got asked that question on a news show. Do you feel like you were left behind, like your U.S. government left you behind? And it hurt me because I said it, and this is what I said. I paused for 15 seconds. He goes, "Are you there?" I said, "Yeah." I said, I can't answer. I can't say no.
Peranto, Geist, and John Tigtigan are 3 of the secret soldiers of Benghazi.
Would you do it all over again?
Of course. I loved the job. It was a lot of fun. I mean, some people say, well, you only did it for the money. Not really, because, the pay in the beginning was really good. The pay dropped quite a bit, and there's other contracts you can go do, like oil companies and stuff like that, but wouldn't enjoy risking my life for oil. So I stayed where I was, protecting people and, stopping the terrorists at their homeland and not letting them come here. I mean, plus being around the guys is just a lot of fun.
And now, the story of those secret soldiers.
Chief, are we expecting any friendlies?
Is no longer a secret. Ephraim Graham, CBN News, Miami.
Up next, discover how archaeological sites in Israel are found in the most unlikely places. Israel's growing construction sites have uncovered some ancient treasures in unlikely places. CBN correspondent Julie Stahl shows us what archaeologists are finding.
Here in Israel's Central Plains, A building boom dots the skyline with cranes in places like Rosh Ha'ain. Before any work commences, the Israel Antiquities Authority conducts what it calls a salvage excavation.
We started to digging here, okay, and we didn't know what we were going to find. But after 3 months, we exposed pretty nice and large monastery.
The discovery of many impressive rural churches and monasteries in the area show that Christianity spread rapidly around the 5th century. Excavation director Amit Shadman says the Byzantine church is paved with a colorful mosaic. One of the most important finds is the Greek inscription at the entrance.
It's exactly the same like today, you know. Yes. People want to know that they gave the money, and you have to understand that it's very expensive to build a complex like this.
The inscription says, "This place was built under Theodosius the priest. Peace be with you when you come, peace be with you when you go. Amen." That's the ancient equivalent of a modern-day donor's plaque today. Up to 30 monks would have lived on the compound, and Shadman believes they were also farmers. The compound included living quarters, stables, and an olive oil press. He says those would not have been built without the help of the church.
The main things of this monastery, you know, is to take care of the rural area.
Archaeologists also uncovered an even older structure nearby, a 2,700-year-old farmhouse.
This area, from the beginning, was used for farming, okay, and for agriculture.
Sometimes archaeologists must move the antiquities, and they often rebury them. But this ancient Byzantine monastery and farmstead are slated to become part of a park.
I can tell you that this site, we're not going to destroy it, you know, and we will plan to keep it and leave it like a green area.
Julie Stahl, CBN News, Rosh Ha'ain, Israel.
Well, as you can see, Israel is a combination of both the ancient and the modern. Well, that's it for this edition. Thanks for joining us. Remember, you can follow us on Facebook and Twitter. I'm Chris Mitchell. We'll see you next time on Jerusalem Dateline.